I hired my neighbor's son to mow my lawn. When he got hurt tripping over a sprinkler, she sued me for medical costs. In court, she said, "You let my boy bleed for pennies." The judge seemed convinced until my security footage revealed her son wasn't alone that day. Behind him was. I've lived in Norman, Oklahoma for over a decade. I'm in my mid-40s, live alone, and I keep to myself. I don't throw block parties or chat much with the neighbors, but I'm not rude. I wave, keep my lawn neat, and mind my business. People here know me as the quiet guy who drives the blue truck and always puts his trash out on time. That's probably why I didn't see it coming when my neighbor across the street, Kendra, decided to make me her personal target. It started like something normal. Something small. About 4 months ago, Kendra came over with her 15-year-old son, Troy. She knocked on my door on a hot Saturday morning. She was polite, which threw me off, because usually she only talked to me when she had something to complain about. Trash cans out too early, leaves blowing into her yard, whatever. But this time she was smiling. She said her son was trying to earn some money. He wanted to buy a gaming computer and was offering lawn care work. She said he could mow, trim, rake, whatever. Troy just stood there quiet, looking at his shoes. He looked nervous. I didn't need much convincing. My back had been giving me problems and the grass was already too long. I told him I'd pay him $30 to mow. He nodded. We agreed he'd come by every Saturday, and that was that. First 3 weeks were fine. He showed up, mowed, collected the money, said thank you, and left. I thought I was helping the kid out. It felt good, honestly. Then came the 4th week. That's when everything turned sideways. That Saturday, I wasn't home. I had driven up to Tulsa to see my sister, and wouldn't be back until the evening. I left my mower in the shed like usual. Troy already knew the combo for the lockbox, and I had even texted him a reminder in case he forgot. I didn't hear anything all day. But later that night, I got a text from Kendra. It said, "Troy had an accident at your place. I expect you to cover medical costs." No greeting. No explanation. Just that. I stared at the message for a minute. I replied, "What happened?" But she didn't answer. Next day, a man in a black shirt knocked on my door and handed me a letter. I was being sued. Kendra filed a lawsuit against me for $3,800, claiming I had failed to keep my property safe and that Troy got seriously injured while working in dangerous conditions. According to the paperwork, Troy tripped over a sprinkler head in my lawn and hit his head on the concrete edge of a flower bed. The suit said he needed stitches and a head scan. Kendra claimed I was negligent, and that I had employed a minor in unsafe conditions. The worst part? The lawsuit claimed I left him there bleeding. That I didn't even offer help. She actually put this line in her statement. He trusted Mr. Dillard. But Mr. Dillard let my boy bleed for pennies. I couldn't believe it. I felt sick. I'd never treat anyone like that, let alone a kid. I got a lawyer. His name was Scott Myers. Ex-prosecutor. Doesn't sugarcoat anything. He read the documents and looked me dead in the eye. "You got any security cameras?" I told him I had one mounted above the front door. Mostly just for packages and the rare porch pirate. It wasn't fancy, but it recorded all day. He said, "Get the footage from that day. All of it." So I did. I pulled it up on my laptop that night. And my jaw dropped. Troy didn't come alone that day. About 10 minutes after he started mowing, a second kid walked into frame. Shorter, younger looking, wearing a hoodie and carrying a small black backpack. I didn't recognize him. They talked for a bit. Troy kept mowing. But the second kid wandered off around the side of the house, then came back. Then he started goofing off. He jumped on the back of the mower like it was a toy. Troy turned and shouted something, clearly angry. The second kid pushed him. Hard. Troy fell backward. His foot caught on the sprinkler head. He went down and smacked the side of his head on the flower bed edge. He lay there for a bit, holding his head. The second kid stood there frozen. Then he ran off. Just took off toward the street. Troy sat up, wiped his head, and walked off in the same direction. He never rang my bell. He never called for help. I wasn't even home. I sent the video to Scott. He called me 5 minutes later. This is gold. She's finished. Court was 2 weeks later. Kendra came in like she was auditioning for a soap opera. Black sweater, fake tears, acting like I'd sent her kid into a war zone. When the judge asked for her statement, she put her hand on her chest and said, "He trusted you. He just wanted to earn some money, and you let him bleed. You walked away from your responsibility." She even pulled out a printed photo of Troy with a bandage on his forehead. I wanted to scream. Then Scott stood up. "We have footage from the incident, Your Honor. It shows that Mr. Dillard was not present, and that another minor was involved in the injury." The judge asked to see it. We played it on a TV screen in the courtroom. Dead silence. The judge leaned forward and asked, "Who is the other boy in this video?" Kendra froze. She mumbled, I don't know." The judge asked again. She looked like a deer in headlights. Then Troy, who was sitting behind her, spoke. "That's my cousin. He was staying with us for the week." Kendra's head snapped toward him. You could tell she didn't expect him to talk. The judge looked at her with disgust. "You filed this lawsuit without disclosing that another party was involved? That the injury was the result of a third party's actions?" She tried to backpedal. She said she was scared, didn't know what to do, thought it was my fault anyway. Didn't matter. The judge dismissed the case on the spot. But that wasn't the end. 2 nights later, someone egged my windows. A few days after that, my truck windshield was cracked. Not shattered, but enough to cost me $400 out of pocket. Then I got a visit from a city code officer who said they got an anonymous tip that I was illegally employing underage workers. They had to investigate. That's when I snapped. I filed a countersuit for defamation, harassment, and property damage. Scott took everything: the original footage, the court records, the reports from the egging and vandalism, even the officer's visit, and built a solid case. Then he found something else. Turns out, 3 years ago, Kendra sued a restaurant in town after Troy supposedly slipped in the bathroom. Case was tossed due to inconsistent witness statements. She had a pattern. I knew now she wasn't just dramatic. She was calculated. This wasn't about protecting her kid. It was about seeing who she could take down next. And she picked the wrong neighbor. The day after I filed the countersuit, I noticed something strange. Troy stopped showing up at school. I didn't go looking for that info. A buddy of mine, Dean, who works as a gym teacher at the high school, called me and said, "You know Kendra's kid? He hasn't been in for over a week. Heard she pulled him out. Said she's homeschooling now." That hit me wrong. Kendra wasn't the homeschooling type. She barely had time to walk her own dog. Something was off. And I started wondering if Troy was really okay. Because even after everything, I couldn't shake the way he looked when he spoke up in court. Nervous. Like he didn't want to lie, but was scared of what would happen if he told the truth. I decided to let my lawyer know about the school thing. Scott just nodded and said, "People like her get desperate when they lose control." A week later, I got a letter in the mail. It was a cease and desist from some out-of-town lawyer representing Kendra. She was claiming that I was harassing her by suing her, and that my cameras were a violation of privacy. Scott laughed when I showed it to him. "Cameras facing your own property aren't harassment. She's bluffing." But she wasn't done. That weekend, I was working in the garage when I heard a commotion across the street. I walked out and saw a tow truck in Kendra's driveway. They were taking her SUV. She was standing there, yelling at the driver, waving papers around, while Troy stood by the porch, just watching, arms crossed. Later that night, I got an email from my insurance agent. Someone had tried to file a claim using my homeowner's policy. They used my name and address but sent the payout to a different bank account. Luckily, it didn't go through, and they flagged it as fraud. It was obvious who was behind it. Scott filed an emergency motion to add fraud and identity misuse to our countersuit. Kendra was spiraling. And then Troy showed up. Not at my door, but at my back fence. I was raking leaves when I heard a quiet, "Mr. Dillard?" I turned. He was standing there, hoodie up, eyes red. "I'm sorry," he said. He told me he didn't know what his mom was planning. He said she made him say things. That the other kid, his cousin, was the one who pushed him, but she told him to leave that out. She said I'd pay for the hospital either way, and that people like me always settle. That's when it hit me. This wasn't just about the money. It was personal for her. She didn't like that I lived quiet. That I didn't need her approval. That I didn't take part in the neighborhood gossip circle. She saw me as the type who'd fold under pressure. But I wasn't folding. Troy gave me a letter. Said it was for court. He wrote it himself. It admitted that he lied, that he was pressured, and that the real reason he got hurt was his cousin goofing off on my mower. Scott lit up when he read it. This just became a whole new case. 3 days later, we served Kendra with an updated filing: intentional infliction of emotional distress, fraudulent legal action, property damage, and malicious harassment. Total damages now, $24,000. And we were pushing for a restraining order, too. Then, something I never expected happened. Kendra showed up at my front door. She knocked hard. I didn't answer. She started yelling through the door. "You think you're some kind of hero? You don't know what it's like to raise a kid on your own. All I ever wanted was a little help. You think you're better than me because you've got cameras and lawyers?" I still didn't open the door. She eventually walked off, muttering under her breath. I called Scott and told him everything. He said to document it all. Record. Report. Don't engage. We were almost there. I could feel it. But something was still coming. I just didn't know how far she'd go to save herself. The court date for my countersuit was set for a Friday morning in mid-November. By then, the trees were bare, and my block had gone cold, literally and emotionally. Neighbors weren't waving anymore. People I'd known for years were suddenly avoiding eye contact, probably because of the things Kendra had been spreading about me. She had told folks I was suing a child. That I'd hired Troy as cheap labor and tried to destroy his life when he got hurt. She played the victim every time she stepped outside. But I knew what I had. And now, so did the court. The courtroom was quiet that morning. Scott and I sat on one side. Kendra on the other. Troy wasn't there. I heard later he'd moved in with his dad, out in Moore. I hoped that was true. The judge walked in, older man, sharp eyes, no patience for games. Scott stood and presented everything. Calm, clear, brutal. He showed the original security footage of Troy's fall, the footage from the second incident, when my windows were egged, same cousin in the background. The insurance fraud attempt, and how the payout was traced to a routing number linked to Kendra's name, Troy's handwritten letter, admitting everything and explaining how his mother had coached him, the harassment reports, including a recording from my doorbell camera with Kendra screaming at my house. Then Scott gave the judge a printout of Kendra's past civil filings, at least 4 lawsuits in 5 years, all dismissed. A clear pattern. Kendra tried to speak up. Tried to cry again. But the judge wasn't moved this time. He leaned forward and said, "This court does not tolerate manipulation of the legal system, especially when it involves using your own child." He didn't just dismiss her countersuit, he ruled in our full favor. Judgment: $24,000 in damages and legal fees. But the judge wasn't done. He granted a restraining order, making it illegal for Kendra to come within 300 feet of me or my house. Then came the twist. Scott had requested one more thing. Something I didn't think would go through. A referral to the district attorney's office for criminal fraud and perjury. And the judge granted it. 3 weeks later, Kendra was arrested. Charged with insurance fraud, filing a false police report, and perjury. The arrest was quiet, early morning. No sirens. But people noticed. Her car was gone from the driveway. Then a local news clip made the rounds. Local woman accused of defrauding neighbor and manipulating legal system using false injury claim involving her teenage son. She tried to claim it was a misunderstanding. That she was just stressed. But the evidence was everywhere. Her own son had turned in a written statement. The bank records. The doorbell audio. The video footage. She got 9 months probation, mandatory community service, and a permanent mark on her record. She was banned from filing civil suits without prior review for 5 years. Her house went up for sale not long after. The bank might have pushed it. I'm not sure. I never asked. By February, she was gone. As for Troy, I saw him once, months later, outside a gas station in Moore. He looked healthier. No hoodie. No slouch. He recognized me and walked over. I wasn't sure if he'd say anything. But he did. Thanks for not suing me, Mr. Dillard. I said. It wasn't your fault. He nodded. She made me lie. I didn't know how to stop her. I told him the truth, that he did the right thing in the end. That's what mattered. He smiled, then left. Now, my lawn is quiet again. My cameras are still up. My back's better, but I mow the lawn myself these days. And when people ask about Kendra, I don't say much. But if they push, I say this: you never know what someone's capable of until they think you're an easy target. And sometimes, the best revenge isn't yelling or fighting. It's letting the truth do the damage. She tried to ruin me. In the end, she ruined herself.